How's it going, folks, and welcome back to the channel. It's your host, Low Tier Hero. Thank you so much for being patient and sticking around with the channel. Shout out to the community. Love you all very much. We got a counter guide for you. I've been playing Pokemon TCG Pocket, and hands down, I have been having so much fun that I've been playing it non-stop. And you know what I've been seeing everywhere, similar to like every other card game? That is literally the same two decks that are just like super meta. And Pokemon TCG has like one of the biggest, if not the craziest deck, and that is Mewtwo EX. This deck is insane and it's being played everywhere. It's being played in casual and it's being played in competitive in the versus section of Pokemon TCG. So I wanted to bring you all a counter guide on how to beat Mewtwo EX and what to go for when you are battling against that strategy. So as most meta decks, we already know that the strategy and the build is fairly cookie cutter. Everybody's playing the same thing. If every once in a blue moon, you might see some different decks that might catch you off guard, but for the most part, it's pretty straightforward and very predictable. We're going to take a look at a sample deck. We're looking at 2 Mewtwo EX, that's the boss monster. We're looking at 2 Ralts, 2 Kirlia, and 2 Gardevoir. Why are we playing 2, 2, and 2? Because this is your supporting strategy. This is the mechanic. The idea is to get your Gardevoir onto the bench and your Mewtwo EX onto the active spot so that you can attach 2 energies per turn and get to your side drive as quickly as possible. Every now and then, some players will play Farfetch'd, and they'll either play Farfetch'd at 1 or they won't play Farfetch'd at all, and they might play a supporter and or an item card to circumvent the missing Farfetch'd. But for the most part, you do get Farfetch'd. Why? Because Farfetch'd is a 60 HP, so that means it'll take on 2 free attacks, and it's hitting for 40 with 1 energy cost. That is really cost effective, and the return on interest is really nice for that Farfetch. And for the supporting cards, you've got 2 Pokeballs so that you can get into your Ralts quicker and or your Mewtwo EX faster. You're playing 2 potions to keep your Gardevoirs alive and your Mewtwo's alive. You're playing 2 X speeds in the event that Gardevoir is pulled to the active spot, or your Kirlia or your Ralts are pulled to the active spot. You use the XP to really just pull them out. And you are playing disruption cards such as red card to mess with the hand against their opponents. And they're also playing 2 Giovanni's. Why? Because Mewtwo EX is an extremely aggro deck and they're looking to sweep you as quickly as possible. And for the purposes of consistency, we've also got Professor's Research. So as I mentioned before, the idea behind this deck is to literally build up your Gardevoir on the bench, get your Mewtwo out. So how do we beat the deck? What are the counters? Are there even counters in Pokemon? Because you can't really disrupt during your opponent's turn. True. It does get a little bit more objective as to what a counter really is, but that is what we're here to clarify. And the counters that I have here for you are going to be 2 counters that I strongly recommend that you play in your deck, and 2 optional counters that you can add in support for additional disruption against Mewtwo players. The first 2 cards that I strongly recommend, and I'm sure you already are aware of what cards that I'm going for, but Sabrina. Why Sabrina? Because forcing your opponent to retreat their active Pokemon, whether it's the Farfetch'd or the Mewtwo EX, to bring out the Gardevoir is in theory going to be your best option. Why? Because you want to cut Mewtwo EX at the knees, and the best way to do that is by stopping their supporting Pokemon, and that's Gardevoir. If the player no longer has Gardevoir, or you're lucky enough to knock out the Ralts or the Kirlia, then you are preventing the side shadow. You prevent the side shadow, the opponent is no longer attaching 2 energies per turn, and they're going to get significantly slowed down. It's basically an iron bundle because the opponent gets to choose which Pokemon comes to the active spot, and if your opponent didn't set up their board well enough, it might catch them off guard to give you a very nice advantage. And the second card that I recommend that a lot of people are playing is going to be Giovanni. Adding 10 extra damage to your attacks can be a game changer, especially when it's the difference between a knockout and a Pokemon escaping or evolving on the next turn. Your goal again is to focus on the Ralts, the Kirlias, the Gardevoir, knock it out, and you prevent the efficiency behind stacking their Mewtwo EX builds. And it's also a great way to just go for sweeps yourself. That supporter is going to give you some solid sweeping abilities to catch your opponent off guard. Those are the top 2 counters that I recommend. Why? Because it's disruption and it's aggro to steamroll and sweep. The next 2 cards are recommended counters, and they'll be up to you whether or not you've got the chemistry to run these cards and they synergize well with your strategy, and that is going to be Hand Scope and Red Card. Hand Scope and Red Card are like the perfect pair. Hand Scope's going to give you hand advantage by looking at your opponent's hand. So if you are going first and you draw Hand Scope and Red Card, activate the Hand Scope, take a look at their card and see how you can disrupt. If they got a 1 Mewtwo EX and 1 Ralts in there, or one or the other, a Red Card at that point is going to be really nice to slow down their strategy, and it's going to help you maintain momentum, help you attach and slowly build your board, so when they finally get those cards back, you will already start knocking Pokemon out. If you ask me, I would play Hand Scope and Red Card at 2 and 2 if it fits your build. If it doesn't fit your build and you're looking for some more conservative ratios, I would play Hand Scope at 1 and Red Card at 2. If you're looking to just play 1 of 1, that works fine, but it does tend to get a little bit bricky, especially mid to late game. These are cards that you want to see early on, early to mid game, not mid game to late game. Now that we've spoken up on counters, we are going to look at one deck that is a definite hard counter against the Mewtwo EX build, Alakazam and Weezing. Why is this such a solid deck against Mewtwo? Because Weezing is a dark Pokemon, so you're already going to get a +20 whenever you attack. Looking at Weezing, you can see that Weezing has an ability, Gas Leak, which is going to poison your opponent's Pokemon, which is going to do 10 damage after each and every end of turn. It's going to do 30, and on top of that, it's going to do an additional 20 when it's hitting a Psychic Pokemon. So for the first attack, you're going to be hitting from 60 and then continuously stacking -10 HP after every single turn. So that's a quick and easy way to either poison the Mewtwo for a slow burn or to completely knock out the Mewtwo. In addition to the Weezing, how else can this deck beat out the Mewtwo build? If we take a look at Alakazam, this attack does 30 more damage for each energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. In theory, if we're looking at a Mewtwo deck, they're literally going to be stacked with 2 to 4 energies. So you're looking at Psychic doing 60 plus 30 plus 30 plus 30 plus 30. That's 120 plus 60, putting you at a potential damage output of 180. That is why this deck is really good and a hard counter to Mewtwo. But if you're not looking to play the Weezing Alakazam deck, or maybe it's out of your budget at this time, again, just try out those counters. Seek a method for board control and hand disruption. And don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. It's super helpful. And until next time, my friends, take care. This is Low Tier Hero. Let's go beat some Mewtwo decks.